Hello race fans, it is Jake Sanderson aka Snowman Cycling and I am back once again with another race recap video for you. And following on from the success of the last couple of videos where I've shown you pain and suffering, this week we're going to have a look back at a race from last September, the first race of the 2022 ZRL Zwift Racing League season, where the course was one lap of Climbers Gambit. And just the very mention of that route may give some of you PTSD, including myself, because in this race you might as well call me Rice Krispies because I snap, crackle and pop into oblivion. But thankfully for me, not yet as we hit this first sprint, because my job here is to not go too hard. It's to let my teammates do the work for me. I'm going to be saving my energy for later on when we've got that Downtown Titans reverse KOM, the short side up. And then following on at the very end of the course, we've got the hell on earth that is the epic KOM. And spoiler alert, this one isn't going to end particularly well for me. And as we've discovered from the last couple of weeks, there's nothing that YouTube likes more than pain, suffering, sweat, blood and tears. And I can promise you that you're going to see all of those and more in this episode, as this is easily the worst that I've ever cracked during any Zwift race. I still wake up in the middle of the night sometimes screaming, remembering this race. If you want to see that happen, make sure you stick around until the end of the episode. There's plenty more to come before that. And for now, my main concern was getting over that little rise at the start of the Zwift KOM, which we managed to do with the front groups. That's great news. There's a couple of riders off the front, not really worried about them at this stage with this much of a group chasing behind. But you can see that some riders are off the back and their race is already over. They're not going to be coming anywhere near the front of the race ever again. So you can see why those little parkours, like that little rise, so important to push and make sure you're with the front of the group. Because if you're not, that might be it. It might be game over. And as we are making our way through the jungle rollers here on our way to the Downtown Titans reverse KOM, you can see that the light is starting to fade here. It's getting darker. I wonder if that's a metaphor for what's going to happen to me later on. But there's no time to worry about that yet, as we are about to hit the KOM. And this is where my hard work for the team begins. As most of you already know, Zwift Racing League has two kinds of points on offer for every segment. You get first across the line points, so the first 10 riders across the line, and you also get the first 10 riders for fastest through the segment. So there's incentive here to be in the first 10 riders across the line and also set one of the 10 fastest times. But 10 isn't going to be enough for me. I've got my eye on first across the line and fastest through the segments for this. A short minute-and-a-half KOM like this is right up my street, and I am going to do everything I can to maximise getting some of those points for the team to put us in as good a position as possible. So I can see that Waldy Wheeler's rider Webster just up ahead. I'm going to use him as a carrot to try and drag myself up to him and beat him to the line. So me and my teammate Alvaro there doing a really good job pacing and just putting in enough of the acceleration to mug that rider Webster on the line, as we managed to take those first across the line and fastest through the point segments. So scoring up some valuable points for the team there, and not making excuses, but let's remember that moment of glory later on at the end of the race when there may not be as much glory to cover myself in. And I think I must be lulled into a false sense of security from that KOM. I'm feeling pretty good here. So good, in fact, that Jake commands, let there be light. But I forgot the most important rule, which is that God giveth and God will most certainly later on taketh away my legs. And that means that the first two difficulties are down and out of the way, and unfortunately that means all that's left is the destroyer of dreams, the epic KOM. And just before we get there, I'm going to give you this week's update on our quest to hit 1,000 subscribers. So in the last few videos, I've explained to you guys why I'm so desperate to reach that 1,000 subscriber mark to unlock a load of YouTube features that I am too much of a small content creator / loser, in YouTube's opinion, to be able to access. And you guys have been absolutely fantastic. We're now at the 770 mark, which is over 75% of the way to our target. So a massive thanks to everybody that's subscribed. So if you watch these videos, like them, enjoy them, then please consider giving me a subscribe, helping us get to that target as soon as possible so I can shut up about it. And that nicely brings us to the base of the epic KOM itself. It's quite a long climb up, this one. You know it already. And I'm going to be going for first across the line and fastest through the segment points again on this one. It's a longer climb, probably 18, 19, 20 minutes, that sort of area. And I'll be aiming to use the group draft from this peloton. So I won't be attacking at the base of this climb. I don't think that makes much sense whatsoever. It's going to be use the draft, surf the wheels, try and use the other riders around us as best as we can for as far up this climb as possible. And as we hit this really steep wall, we've already shed quite a lot of riders from the back of this group. So this really is going to be crucial to make sure that any gaps that open up are closed before they get too big. And whilst this is all going on, you may have noticed that there's a rider, Webster, the rider from earlier on, who is 25 seconds up the road. Now on this channel, I do my best to make sure I do not call out anybody for cheating in Zwift races. I understand there is a lot of cheating in Zwift races. It's just part and parcel of how it goes. So even when someone's cheating, I tend to just not mention it and act like they're just a really strong rider, like would happen in real life. However, in this instance, I just want to draw your attention to the fact that this rider did 4.4 for 20 minutes on this climb, and before this race had never done more than 3.3 for 20 minutes, and since this race in September has never done more than 3.3 for 20 minutes. So at the very best, whatever happened here was an anomaly for this rider. Their heart rate was 10 beats, their average heart rate was 10 beats per minute lower than it usually is for races for this one as well. This is the only race they've ever won on Zwift. They've never done numbers even remotely close to that since. And they were doing 33% more power than they usually do. I'm not accusing anybody of cheating, but at the very least here, this appears to be an equipment miscalibration from that rider, Webster, from Waldy Wheelers. So I'm not going to go as far as call out cheating, but there's definitely something amiss there that hasn't been repeated since. And in my opinion, it's bad form to be racing when you are well off the front of a group like this and you're doing 33% more power than you've ever done before. So even if it is a equipment miscalibration, he should have known that he was impacting the race very, very badly here, causing everybody else to chase behind. And if you're that far ahead, you probably know there's something amiss, seeing as you've never won a race before. So poor form, in my opinion. Let me know in the comments down below. Do you think that's poor form? Do you think you just have to take it as part of the Zwift way of life, take it on the chin? Or do you wish Zwift was doing more to combat equipment miscalibrations and people trying to game the system? But I can moan all I like after the fact. That's not going to help me out on the road here. But then again, I don't think anything is going to help me here. As you can see, we've been trying to chase. Me and Alvaro have been trading turns to try and pull back the gap to this Webster rider up ahead. We've had this Fullbrook rider sat on us as well, but everybody else has been binned off the back of this group. I have concertinaed off the back. That gap has opened up a little bit a couple of times, but I've managed to work my way back on. But as we look at the gap opening up here, this is the beginning of the end. There's riders 20 seconds behind me. I'm in 4th place. I'm really trying to fight to cling on here to get a shot at this podium. But I can see my teammate Alvaro putting in a dig here, as he well should, and trying to get away. The rider Fullbrook does really well to try and follow him, and I'm just going to give it everything I've got to try and get onto Fullbrook's wheel for as long as I can and try and pace it up to the top of this climb. I felt pretty good until this point, but I was doing a bit of work on the front, and I was conscious of that rider who was up ahead, thinking maybe we could pull him back and try and get the win on the road. But Alvaro's managed to get a bit of a gap there. I come up to Fullbrook, and I'm not going to come around Fullbrook and start pulling, because that would pull him towards Alvaro. So all I'm going to do is sit here and pace with Fullbrook. If he wants to catch Alvaro, he's going to have to do it, and I'll sit on him for as long as I can. In this instance, it's not like I'd be able to do much work to help him anyway, but those are the rules. You cannot chase your own teammates, and it's worked to Alvaro's favour because that gap opens up, and Fullbrook realises I'm not going to give him any assistance whatsoever. And as we go over the top of that little rise, get a tiny bit of recovery before the next bit of climbing starts, I am absolutely on the limit. I am really, really suffering here. My max heart rate is still about 10 beats away from the absolute max, but I've just emptied everything. I feel like I've got literally no carbs, no glucose, no sugar at all left in my body. And I managed to mess that up so that Fullbrook comes around me doing less power than me. I basically give him a lead out on the descent into the base of that climb, and then he just goes away from me, even though I was doing pretty big power. And at this point, I really am struggling. I can almost barely turn the pedals. I've never experienced anything quite like it on the bike, especially during a Zwift race, and especially during a Zwift race that's this short. We're still only at about the 45-minute mark. I didn't realise it was possible to bonk quite that hard and empty yourself quite that much in such a short period of time. But that's the thing with Zwift. You generally learn something new every race. Not always a good thing, but you always learn something. And it's hard to get across just how bad the suffering was here on the video. But you can see I'm just looking down at my handlebars, wishing this was over. And as a good indicator to see just how badly this is going, you can see that I've already lost 40 seconds to Fulbrook and Alvaro up the road in only just over 1K. Unfortunately for me, this is not over. The pain is not over. And I am not done blowing up yet, because I haven't just got to worry about falling off the podium. I've got to worry about being caught by my teammate behind, as my teammate Chris pulls back a 13-second deficit with 1K to go, almost like I am stood still. So I've just lost 20 seconds in about 300 meters of incline there, and Chris just goes and goes. I try my absolute best to get onto his wheel, but I crack like an egg, and I end up with yolk all over my face as my teammate comes flying past me, leaving me for dead. And Chris actually puts in a good 30 seconds over the final K, which just shows how slowly I was going here. I really was cycling through treacle. And as we go over the crest there, I'm doing my best to hold off that 15-16 second gap from the rider behind Hall. And I know that he's probably not going to be able to catch at this point. As I come limping, hopping, hobbling over the line, finally glad to be done with that never-ending hell. When I have a look at the power, it wasn't that bad. My 20-minute power there was 4.0, so on the climb we probably did slightly more than 4.0. My normalized power for the whole thing was just under 4.0 for 55 minutes as well. But I think the killer was this was my first race for about a month off the bike over summer. But sometimes the most painful lessons are the most valuable. So I hope you all enjoyed that one. A nice insight into how it feels to crack into 1,000 pieces. And remember, make sure you like, comment, most importantly, subscribe. I hope to catch you on the next one. And remember, most importantly, race fast, ride hard, and that you are appreciated.